Listen, I am literally walking down 63rd Street in the pouring rain right now because my own husband, well, my ex-husband, as of 20 minutes ago, just threw my trash bags onto the sidewalk. I mean, can you imagine? 10 years. I stayed with Darnell when he was selling insurance out of the trunk of his car. I stayed when his mama, Mrs. Eunice, told him he should have married a lighter-skinned girl with better hair. I stayed through the double shifts and the empty fridge. I was the one who paid for his MBA, y'all. I was the one who wore the same pair of shoes for 3 years so he could have a tailored suit. But today, Darnell got his big break. He got a partnership at the Thorne Group, and the first thing he did was tell me I didn't fit the brand anymore. "Kamara, you're a great girl," he said. He didn't even look me in the eye, y'all. He was too busy adjusting his silk tie in the mirror. You need a wife who looks like she belongs in a penthouse, not someone who smells like hospital bleach and wears hoodies from Target. Wait. Before I tell you what I found in my grandma's old tin box, I need to know, have y'all ever been treated like you were invisible just because you didn't have a designer logo on your chest? Where are you joining me from? Drop your city in the comments. I need to feel like I'm not the only one the world tried to discard today. Are you in Philly, ATL, DC? Let me know I'm not alone. He thinks he left me with nothing. He thinks he's moving into that corner office on Monday to meet the secret owner of the firm. What he doesn't know is that my grandma didn't just leave me her old Bible and a recipe for peach cobbler. She left me a key to the very building he's standing in right now. It didn't end with the sidewalk, though. No, y'all, it got worse. I had to go to the family cookout today. It was my Auntie Joyce's 60th birthday. I had nowhere else to go. I showed up with my bags in the trunk of a lifter, hair a mess from the rain. I sat down and the air just changed. You know that look? That, oh, look at poor Kamara look. Darnell was already there. He brought Tiffany, the perfect assistant. She had the 30-inch bundles and the tiny waist and enough jewelry to blind a person. "Kamara, honey," Auntie Joyce said loud enough for the whole park to hear. "I heard Darnell finally outgrew you. Don't worry, I got a little plate for you. You can sit over there with the kids." The kids' table, y'all, at 35 years old. I looked at Darnell. He was laughing, feeding Tiffany a grape. He didn't even acknowledge me. So I decided to test them. I walked up to the main table, my voice trembling. "Darnell, I need to ask a favor. I'm short on the light bill. Can you loan me $500 until my next shift?" The whole yard went silent. Then Darnell chuckled. "Kamara, I'm a partner now. I don't deal in small change. Maybe if you spent less on those hoodies and more on your career, you wouldn't be begging." Tiffany giggled. "Do you want a $5, sweetie, for a coffee?" She held out a $5 bill like I was a stray dog. Listen, I took that $5. I took it and I tucked it into my grandma's old tin box because I knew something they didn't. I knew that in 1 hour, the bank president was scheduled to call me to confirm the transfer of the Thorne Group's assets. See, what Darnell and his mama never knew was that my grandma wasn't just a cleaning lady for the Thorne family for 50 years. She was their secret. The old man, Mr. Thorne, he was a recluse. He didn't trust his own children. He didn't trust his lawyers. But he trusted the woman who made him his tea every morning for 5 decades. When he passed away 5 years ago, everyone thought he left his fortune to a charity. But my grandma, she pulled me into her room before she passed last year. She gave me that rusted tin box. "Kamara," she said, "the Thorne family owes us, not for the cleaning, but for the silence. They gave me 40% of the firm in a blind trust. It's yours now, but don't you use it until you see who stands by you when you have nothing." I've lived like I was broke for 5 years, y'all. I worked at the hospital. I let Darnell think he was the breadwinner. I wanted to see if he loved Kamara or if he loved a paycheck. Today, I got my answer. I pulled out my phone at the cookout. I hit a button I hadn't touched in years. 5 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up to the park. Not a regular SUV, a motorcade. Auntie Joyce stopped talking. Darnell stood up, looking all important, thinking they were there for him. Must be my new security team, he bragged. A man in a $5,000 suit stepped out. He walked right past Darnell. He walked right past Tiffany. He came straight to the kids' table. He bowed his head. "Mrs. Chairman," he said, "the board is ready for the emergency meeting. We need your signature to terminate the new partnerships." Y'all should have seen Darnell's face. It went from success to ghost in 3 seconds. "Mrs. Chairman," Darnell stammered, "Kamar, what is this? Who is this man?" I stood up. I wiped the barbecue sauce off my fingers with a cheap napkin and looked him dead in the eye. "Darnell, you remember how you said you didn't deal in small change? Well, the Thorne Group just became small change to me." The man in the suit, that was Mr. Henderson, the bank president, handed me a tablet. "Ma'am, we have the list of the junior partners who were added this morning. A Mr. Darnell Vance is on the list. Shall we proceed with the clawback?" Tiffany dropped her drink. "Kamara, you own the firm?" "I own the building, the firm, and the chair Darnell is sitting on," I said. Auntie Joyce tried to run over then. "Kamara, baby, I was just joking about the kids' table. You know you're my favorite niece." "Listen, Auntie," I said, "keep the plate. I'm full on the truth today." I looked at Darnell. "You wanted a wife who belongs in a penthouse? Well, you're about to be looking for a new apartment because I just sold your condo. It was under my trust the whole time." Listen, the park went so quiet you could hear the charcoal popping in the grill. Auntie Joyce's jaw was literally touching her chest. Darnell was still holding a spare rib, but he looked like he'd forgotten how to chew. Mr. Henderson didn't just stand there, y'all. He signaled to the other SUVs. 4 more men in black suits stepped out. They formed a perimeter around the kids' table. My table. "Kamara." Darnell's voice was an octave higher than usual. "What did he just call you? Mrs. Chairman? Is this some kind of prank? Who are these people?" I didn't answer him right away. I took a slow sip of my lukewarm water and looked at Tiffany. She was clutching her designer purse so hard her knuckles were turning white. "Tiffany, honey," I said, leaning forward, "you can take that $5 back now. I think you're going to need it more than I am. See, Mr. Henderson here is the CEO of the bank that holds your father's business line of credit, and I'm the woman who just instructed him to freeze it." "You can't do that!" Darnell screamed, finally dropping the rib. He tried to step toward me, but one of the security team, a man built like a brick wall, stepped into his path. "Mr. Vance," Henderson said, his voice like ice, "please maintain a respectful distance from the majority shareholder. Your partnership agreement was contingent on your stable family image and your financial integrity. Since you've just publicly admitted to being unable to pay a $500 light bill while wearing a company-funded suit, you are in breach of contract." I stood up then. I felt 10 feet tall, y'all. I looked at Auntie Joyce, who was suddenly trying to hide the kids' table sign behind a cooler. "Auntie," I said, "the food was a little dry, but the company? The company was enlightening. It showed me exactly who was family and who was just a fan of the paycheck." "Kamara, baby, wait!" Darnell was frantic now. He tried to walk around the guard. "We can talk about this. I was just stressed. The move, the new job. I didn't mean those things." "You meant every word, Darnell. You meant them when you threw my bags in the rain. You meant them when you called me a maid. And I mean this. Mr. Henderson, please serve the papers." Henderson handed Darnell a thick manila envelope. "What is this?" Darnell whispered. "That," I said, "is the eviction notice for the penthouse you haven't even moved into yet, and the termination of your health insurance. Since you're so worried about my smell of hospital bleach, I figured I'd make sure you never have to step foot in a hospital again. You're on your own now." I need to know, have y'all ever had someone try to crawl back the second the money showed up? Drop a no way in the comments if you've ever had to shut that door for good. Monday morning came faster than a heartbeat. I didn't show up in a hoodie this time. I walked into the Thorne Group headquarters wearing a tailored black power suit, my hair in a sleek, sharp bob. My heels clicking on that marble floor sounded like a countdown. Darnell was already in the lobby. He was wearing his best suit, trying to talk his way past the security desk. He looked like he hadn't slept in 48 hours. His eyes were red, and his tie was crooked. "I'm a partner," he was yelling at the guard. "My badge just isn't working." "It's not working because the partner who sponsored you just had her credentials revoked, Darnell." He spun around. He didn't even recognize me for a split second. The worker bee was gone. Standing in front of him was the woman who could end his career with a nod. "Kamara?" he gasped. You look like the boss," I finished for him. The elevator doors opened. Only for me. "Wait," he cried, trying to catch the door. "We're married, Kamara. Everything you have is half mine. That's the law." I let the doors almost close before I spoke. "We were married under a prenuptial agreement your mother forced me to sign, remember? The one that said anything brought into the marriage stays with the original owner. She wanted to protect your future millions from me. Turns out she protected my inheritance from you." The doors shut. Up in the boardroom, the air was different. The Thorne family, the actual children of the old man, were sitting there looking sour. They hated that a maid's grandmother held the tie-breaking vote for the entire conglomerate. "Mrs. Chairman," the eldest Thorne son said, not even looking at me, "we find this transition of power highly irregular. We'd like to buy out your shares." I sat at the head of the table. I laid my grandma's old tin box right there on the mahogany wood. "You can't afford me, and as of 9 a.m., I've decided to restructure. We're selling off the luxury division, including the firm Darnell was supposed to join. We're pivoting into low-income housing and community clinics." The room erupted. They were screaming about brand identity and profit margins. "Listen," I said, slamming my hand on the table. The room went dead silent. "For 50 years, my grandmother cleaned up your messes. She saw the books. She knew where the bodies were buried. You didn't give her these shares out of the goodness of your heart. You gave them to her to keep her quiet. Well, Granny's gone, and I've got a very loud voice."
I was halfway to my car when I heard the click-clack of expensive heels hitting the pavement behind me. I didn't even have to turn around. I knew that scent, Chanel No. 5 in desperation. "Kamara, Kamara, honey, wait!" It was Mrs. Eunice. She was breathless, her silk scarf fluttering behind her like a white flag. She reached out to grab my arm, her manicured fingers trembling. I stepped back, letting her hand fall into the empty air. "Mrs. Eunice," I said, my voice as flat as a dial tone, "I'm surprised to see you. I thought I was a worker bee who didn't belong in your family's garden." Her face did a funny little twitch, a mix of a fake smile and a real wince. "Oh, Kamara, you know how I am. I'm just old-fashioned. I was just trying to motivate you. And Darnell, he's just a boy. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's heartbroken, baby." "He's not heartbroken, Eunice. He's wallet-broken," I snapped. She let out a little sob, dry as a bone, y'all, not a single tear in sight. "They're taking his car. They're locking the penthouse. Kamara, if you love him, you'll talk to that bank man. Tell him it was all a misunderstanding. Darnell is your husband." "Was," I corrected her. "He was my husband until he decided I was the help. And since you love high-class people so much, I have some news for you. I'm the landlord of that little boutique you like to shop at, the one where you have a running tab you haven't paid in 3 months." Her eyes went wide. She looked like she'd swallowed a fly. "I'm closing it," I said, leaning in close. "Not the store, just your account. From now on, you pay cash. Or you can do what I did, work 3 jobs and wear the same shoes for 3 years. It builds character, right?" Listen, have y'all ever had a mother-in-law who only loved you when you were doing something for her son? If you've survived a Eunice, drop a shield emoji in the comments. We need to protect our peace from these people. You can't do this, she shrieked as I closed my car door. We are family. Family doesn't sit family at the kids' table, I said through the window. Drive, Henderson.
By Tuesday, the news was all over the industry rags. Mystery shareholder liquidates luxury assets. Darnell, the name, was mentioned in the fine print as a dismissed associate. I was back in the boardroom, but this time the Thorne siblings weren't sitting, they were standing. They had their lawyers with them, a row of men in gray suits who looked like they were attending a funeral. "We've reviewed the trust, Mrs. Chairman," the lead lawyer said. "Everything is airtight, but surely you realize that selling the luxury division will tank the stock price." "Good," I said, tapping my pen on the table. "I want it low. I want to buy back the remaining 60% at a discount, and then I'm turning the penthouse suites into a transitional housing program for single mothers." The Thorne brother looked like he was having a stroke. "That's prime real estate. You're turning a billion-dollar asset into a charity?" "I'm turning it into a legacy," I corrected him. "Something you wouldn't understand. My grandmother spent 50 years scrubbing the floors of that building so you could live in the clouds. It's time the people on the ground got a view." While I was signing the papers, my phone buzzed. It was a video from my brother. He was at the penthouse. "Sis, you gotta see this," he whispered into the camera. The video showed Darnell standing in the lobby of the penthouse building, surrounded by his Louis Vuitton luggage. Tiffany was there too, but she wasn't helping him. She was screaming at him. "You told me you were a partner," she yelled, her voice echoing off the marble. "You told me you owned this place. I'm not staying in a Motel 6 with you, Darnell." She hailed a cab, hopped in, and didn't even look back as he chased her down the street, tripping over one of his own bags. "Wait," he was yelling. "Tiffany, I still have the watch. I can sell the watch." I watched the video twice. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I just felt done. Darnell had finally found the younger model he wanted. Turns out she didn't come with a warranty for when things got tough. A week later, I went back to that little house on 63rd Street, not to move back in, but to say goodbye. I sat at that same scratched-up kitchen table where Darnell had told me I didn't fit the brand. I pulled out Granny's tin box. It was empty now, except for that $5 bill Tiffany had given me at the cookout. I looked at that $5, and I thought about all the times I'd prayed for a miracle. I thought about the nights I cried myself to sleep because I didn't think I was enough. I realized then that the money wasn't the miracle. The miracle was the strength I had when I didn't have a dime. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I knew who it was before I even answered. "Kamara?" Darnell's voice sounded like he'd been swallowing glass. He was crying, real tears this time. "Kamara, please, I'm at a shelter. My mama won't even take me in because she's losing her house. Please, I made a mistake. I love you." "Darnell," I said softly, "do you remember what you said to me in the rain? You said I smelled like bleach and Target. I was stupid. I was arrogant." "No," I said. "You were honest. You saw a worker bee, but you forgot that the bee is the one who makes the honey. I don't hate you, Darnell. I just don't know you. The man I loved would never have sat his wife at the kids' table. Please, Kamara, just $500, just to get me on my feet." I looked at the $5 bill on the table. "I'll do you one better, Darnell. I'm sending a car to pick you up. It'll take you to the Thorne Group's new housing project. You can have a bed there, but you're going to have to work for it. There's a janitorial position open. It pays $15 an hour. You start at the bottom, just like my granny did." He went silent. Then he hung up. I guess he still didn't like the smell of bleach. So that's my story. Today, I'm standing in front of the Granny Rose Community Center. It used to be the Thorne Group's flagship luxury showroom, but now Now it's full of kids getting after-school tutoring and mothers getting job training. Listen, if you're sitting at a kid's table right now, whether it's at work, in your family, or in your marriage, I want you to hear me. Their table is not your destination. Their seats are not your limit. God has a way of flipping the script when you least expect it. What would you have done? Would you have given him the job, or would you have left him on the street? Tell me in the comments. I'm going to be responding to y'all all night. If this story reminded you of your own worth, hit that like button. Share this with a woman who's feeling invisible today. Let her know that her tin box is coming. Subscribe to join the family, because we don't just tell stories here, we build each other up. I'm Kamara, and I'm no longer sitting at anyone's table but my own. I'll see y'all in the next story. Stay blessed, stay sharp, and never let them see you sweat.